So, welcome to another episode of Spike Chats. We're very fortunate and privileged today to have Steph Wicken with us from Wilson and Partners. Steph, welcome.
Thank you.
Steph, you've had a very interesting career. Tell me what you do at the moment.
So at the moment, I work for a mechanical and electrical consulting company. So we do building services designs, everything behind the walls, so the lighting, the air conditioning, that sort of thing. And I sit as business support in that business at the moment. So it's senior management where I kind of run the HR, the operations, the IT, the CSR, and occasionally get involved in projects, do a bit of project management or help out where needed, basically.
Quite varied, quite a lot.
Yeah, you could say. Well, we're a small business, though, so I get away with it. It's
And have you been trained in all the different facets of the things you do?
No, to be honest, I don't think I've never been on a training course in my life. Actually, you just pick it up as you go along and try things, and thankfully someone else has paid for it, which helps.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you, Steph?
I'm 25.
Okay, so to do such a varied job, pulling on so many different levers, each of them being really integral to the success of the organisation. Take us back. How did you get to doing what you're doing at the moment? Where did it all start? Take me back to school days. What did you do at school?
So I started. I'll start right at the beginning in
yes.
primary school.
Yes.
I went to a private school and I spent my kind of former years doing an awful lot of extracurricular activities. I mean, I obviously went to the classes and everything, but my focus, I was in the choirs, I was playing music on all the sports teams, chess club, anything I could do that was out there, I'd go and get hold of.
What was his drive behind going to do more and more varied things?
I can't pinpoint where it came from. It's just something I've always done. I've been fortunate. My parents have always been very supportive of going out and trying new things and
Very nice.
having a go. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. You do something else.
Very good.
So I had that through my primary school, and then I went to secondary school. I went to a grammar school, which was very. It was a lot more academic. So I grew up thinking a B was a fail, and so I had my kind of the extracurricular activities happened in my younger years, and then from 11 to 16 was more academic, making sure that you're communicating and learning how to present information very effectively. And but I didn't particularly enjoy school. I was busy doing sports outside of school, so I wasn't very present really, and because of that I didn't have a very good social circle, so I didn't enjoy it. I didn't have any social life.
But you took sports quite seriously, did you?
Yes, very seriously.
Which sports did you?
So initially it was gymnastics when I was younger, and then I started doing swimming, and I swam at kind of regional level for a few years, and then I picked up sailing when I was about 10, and did that for about 10 years up to national level, and represented. We used to go around with the squads. I was in the national junior squad for topper sailing, and we go around all over the world. And then I went into the youth development scheme and then quit.
But in a way, it's understandable then that you weren't totally focused on the academia.
I've always, when I reflect back on my younger years, it's very much bubbles of groups of people and different activities. And they didn't necessarily cross over. I'd almost become a different person to suit what environment I was in. So I guess I developed quite a lot of different types of character attributes from that.
And did that involve sacrificing? Were there times when you felt you gave some things up in order to focus on other things?
Particularly when I stopped the sailing, that's when I realised how much I'd given up to do it. I used to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym, to then go to school, to come back, go straight to the gym again, then back home to do homework. And when I was in year 7, I got invited to the birthday parties, and very quickly people stopped inviting me because I was always sailing. And at the time, you just did it. It becomes a habit. You don't notice. And it's only when I stopped that I really realised how much I'd lost from that sort of side.
So looking back now, do you feel you paid a price for this pursuit of sports?
I wouldn't. Yes, but I got more out of it than I lost. So it's.
Okay.
I look at how I am now, how I approach things. I mean, I've been setting SMART goals since I was 6 years old, before it was even a thing. So things
What
like
are SMART
that.
goals? Remind me.
specific, measurable, something, something, and no, smart. Uh,
Tangible. Yes.
tangible, that one. But that whole kind of being able to self-reflect and look at where you are now and what you need to improve on in order to get better, that as a mindset has been with me since
Does
I was
that
very
equate
young.
to competitive?
I'm incredibly competitive. People keep telling me they're the most competitive person they've ever met, and I don't even think I'm that competitive anymore. You should have seen me 10 years ago.
So you're doing the sports. Academia wasn't really your thing, even though you went through it. By the time you were finishing school, where have you got to?
So when I was 16, my dad got me some work experience at a construction company, just office junior. I literally spent 6 months scanning on documents. But I really enjoyed the lack of... So when I went to an all-girls school, so there's a lot of cliques and peer pressure to be a certain way and do certain things. And when I went to work, no one cared. I could just sit there, I'd come in, I'd do my job. No one cared who I was or how I presented myself, as long as the job was done at the end of the day.
And was that liberating for you?
Massively liberating. It was a massive turning point for me, and it gave me the space to find out who I really was as a person and grow and mature there.
But in a way, you bucked a system.
Yeah, I kind of look at it, what most people do at university, I did when I was 16. So I just ended up being a couple of years ahead of the curve in terms of growing up and realising who I am as a person. And by doing it that little bit younger has allowed me to leverage much higher, I might have done it 2 years earlier, but now I'm probably 5 years ahead, because what you can do in those 2 years when you're younger can be so much more productive because people are
Very
generally...
good. So you're doing work experience, it's liberating, you're enjoying it, it's stretching you. What happens next?
So I was due to go back to my school to do A-levels, and I went and picked up my GCSE results, but I got so used to not being at school, I couldn't face going back. So I then, but I wanted to carry on studying. I'm relatively academic as a person. I enjoy learning and I enjoy formal learning. So I enrolled in the Open University and I started my first degree at 16 part-time, alongside doing my full-time work.
So, let me see if I've got this right. You started work early.
Yes.
But also started a degree early.
Yes.
You're bucking the trend everywhere.
I like to have a nice structure, and then I put it to one side and I say other people can do that, and I just completely ignore it.
So you continued with the work experience. That became a full-time job.
Yes. So I stayed at that company for about a year and a half. And while I was there, once my work experience ended, I got a bit more involved, and I learned a bit of programming because a new bit of software came in, and they went, "You're young, you can do it." And so I then went a next step and started writing, coding the reports for the commercial department. And then I started getting pulled over to the projects team a bit more, by one of the guys who were there. And by the time I left them with a 16-page document of everything I did, from bringing the milk in the morning for the fridge to how to log into the system and wipe it in 6 clicks and 6 characters.
You enjoyed it?
Oh, I loved it. It was probably, at that time, it was a lot of fun, and it was the first time that I'd been allowed to really go beyond a structured, because when you're in schools, there's only so much you can do outside of it.
But what you're saying there, that this structure was one that was really put together by you, for you.
Yeah, a lot of...
Your courage in taking things on and accepting responsibility meant that became the informal structure.
Yeah, I guess so. I've always been quite good at knowing where my parameters lie, and that's allowed me to push myself without having someone else have to do it for me. It's very difficult to find the exact right person who's going to push you in the exact way that you want to be pushed at that exact right moment.
Very good.
And actually taking the responsibility and being able to do it yourself. And it takes time to master it. It probably took me 5 years worth of dabbling in various different bits to work out actually what do I like and don't I like and how do I like to do it.
But behind that dabbling is having the opportunity to find out what you like, having the opportunity to find out what you're good at, as opposed to going into perhaps a more fully structured job description that may not have fit. So was this your second job now?
So well, it went from the work experience, stayed at the company,
Yes.
and became a full-time job, and then I went back to school and did A levels because I had a bit of an argument with my mother where she went, "You've got to have A levels." I said, "I'm on the second year of my degree program. I don't need A levels." But I was 17, I was still living at home, and therefore I went and did A levels.
You lost the argument.
Yeah, but I won the war, so it's
No,
okay.
of course. So now you're doing second year at Open University.
Yeah.
You've had some work experience under your belt, and you're going back to school to do your A levels.
Yes, so I did 3 A levels, but condensed in a year. So I did maths, chemistry, and biology, but the 2-year course in 1 year.
Did you enjoy it this time round?
No, I hated it.
Why?
Because I felt like I wasn't progressing. It was a box ticking exercise. It wasn't there for any actual development. It didn't help me grow as a person per se. It was just literally a matter of ticking a box.
Did you pass?
Yeah, of course I passed.
Was it hard?
No, it was just I just didn't enjoy it. It was a slog. It wasn't difficult. I guess I'm quite fortunate. I've never found academia particularly difficult in its concepts, but sitting it out and having to go every day and do something you don't want to do, that I did find hard.
So you've gone through it. Were you still at the Open University at this stage?
Oh yeah.
So you're doing the Open University, but you're now back in the job market.
Yes.
And what are you looking for this time around?
I didn't really know, to be honest. I went and worked for an insurance company for 3 months. It was the one and only job I've ever actually got myself. And I went to the
Who got you the other jobs?
My dad. Yeah.
How does your dad get you jobs?
He's just a very good man. I don't know.
Has a network, has contacts?
He's worked in trains for a long time, and trains is quite small, so
he's got a lot of contacts.
He's got a lot of contacts.
So this time you went and found yourself. What were you looking for? Do you know?
I didn't know what I was looking for. I'm not very good at having the end goal. My end goal shifts depending on my environment and the people around me at the time.
Understand.
So I was just looking for something, and I went into the interview. It's a 2-stage process. And I remember pretty much all I said, I want to grow and develop and grow and develop. I didn't even know what underwriting was, and I was supposed to be going into a role which it was quite fundamental for. So I got that job on that front, and then found out very quickly it wasn't for me.
What were the indicators that made you realise it's not going to work for me?
Everyone sat in cubicles.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally, it was a paperless office, so you're allowed 1 sheet of paper on your desk, and that's all, which, coming from a construction background where we have hundreds of bits of paper stacked up all around you, was a bit of a shock. And it just, there wasn't the work. I like to have a big pile of work to go through.
There were many rules, it seems, as well.
Yes, yeah.
And getting to know already, that's not going to fit so well with you.
No, I'm not.
You want a bit of freedom.
Yes, that's it.
So how long did you last there?
3 months.
What happens next?
So when I was there, I learnt how to code.
Yes.
And then I ended up going back into construction to the office next door to the one I worked at in my first job, which was quite amusing. Mm-hmm. And I went in as an administrator. They didn't have admin as a function, so there wasn't an office manager per se. I guess in terms of what I ended up doing, it was office manager, but it was a lot less glorified than that. And so it was pretty much the same sort of things as before, but this time I implemented a quality management system for them, because I did that as part of my first job. I was in the team, and this time it was my responsibility to find out who the auditors were.
So you'd done it before, so you knew a little bit about the process, the systems, the structure. But what gave you the confidence that this time round you could own it, you could drive it, you'll be responsible?
I don't know what. I think I just did it. I just don't think about it. I'm quite fortunate. I'm not a particularly anxious person. I don't sit there over-analysing how something's going to work. I've got a confidence in my own abilities that it will just happen and it will be fine.
Some call that courage.
Or naivety. Depends on your
thin line. But you weren't afraid?
No.
Weren't you afraid that you might get it wrong?
Not particularly, because I had support around me where if I got it, I wouldn't get it wrong enough that it would make a real big issue.
Very good. So you're back to. So you're in there now. Are you still doing the open degree course at this
Still
stage?
doing the open
Where are you now?
university.
Is third year now?
Yes, so because I did it part-time, I was year 2.5.
Okay. So how long did you stay at this place?
I was only there for 6 months.
Why?
Because I implemented the system and then there was no more work for me to do. So I went and worked on site for a couple of weeks because I'm in construction. I want to know how the thing goes together. So I spent 2 weeks sweeping arches. But there wasn't anywhere to go. And so I went travelling instead.
Why travelling?
Because I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't know what it was. So I thought I'd just try something completely different.
And where'd you go?
I went to Germany and Austria. So I've learnt German since I was quite young. So I kind of grown up in the language. I'm comfortable with that as a culture. And so I got in my car and I drove around Germany for 6 months.
And when did you know it was enough travelling, time to get back to work?
So I left in November and then I drove around until about January time. And then I went down to Austria and I did my ski instructor's course. And then I went and worked as a ski instructor for a season. And it was getting towards the end of the season.
How old are you at this stage?
19, 20, maybe 20 now. And everyone was either German or Dutch. And there was one other girl, she was from Ireland. And we were sat halfway up the mountain having a hot chocolate one morning. And she was like, "Why are you so nice to people?" I was like, "Well, I don't know who they are. I treat everyone the same way. I think that's really important." It's like, "Yeah, but I don't get it. What are you doing here?" And it made me think, what am I doing here? I'd always had the kind of feeling I wanted to try the very, relaxed lifestyle of doing the coaching, instructing, that sort of thing. And I tried it and it wasn't for me, really. I loved getting up every morning and being on the mountain. It was stunning. But the kind of day-to-day of that didn't fit my character. And I thought...
But you were brave enough to try it?
Yeah.
Didn't mum or dad at this stage sort of say, you need a proper job?
No. This is the great thing about the A-levels battle, is that when that concluded, my mum said to me, "I'm never going to tell you what to do ever again."
Because that clearly didn't work.
Yes. So
you're leaving the slopes. Mm-hmm. Where are you off to now?
So I went straight back home, actually. I pretty much had that conversation and then the next day went into the ski school and said, I'm thinking about going home. And he said, fine. And I booked a ferry and I was back home in 2 days.
Open University?
Still going.
But now looking for a job?
Now looking for a job.
Yeah. How did you get this one?
My dad got it for me.
I thought there was a big little link there. So your dad gets you a job, and was this construction again now?
Yes, but this time instead of being a contractor, it was a designer. By doing the travelling, I'd gone, right, now I'm ready to settle. Now I'm ready to find a profession, something for me to do and be willing to do for 30 years potentially.
Very good.
And because I'm quite scientific, analytical, with what I've been doing my degree in, which was a combination of physics, data, science, engineering, I thought, right, engineering, let's do that. And so I was in a consultancy, the one I'm in now actually, and I started as a technician doing drawings, but then I was like, I need to get a proper degree now because my Open University degree is not a proper degree. So I enrolled in...
Why is it not a proper degree?
Because it wasn't in anything, it was in everything.
Yes. So, but you got that?
Yes.
So now you're going for a proper degree. What's this proper degree going to be in?
Mechanical engineering.
Which lent itself to what you wanted to apply yourself to?
Yeah, well, what I thought was something that I could do long term. Not necessarily the thing that... Because I'm very prone to doing things for 6 months to a year, very intensely, absolutely loving it. And then go, right, now what's next?
We've noticed.
We've
noticed. So now the things are starting to align now. Mm. You've had some life experiences. You've had some academia. Mm-hmm. You've made some choices. You've chosen a degree now that lends itself to your career. And you consequently stayed 4 or 5 years?
Yes, 4.5 years.
4.5 years. So I want you to look backwards now. Your career. Many would say that was slightly disjointed.
Somewhat.
But you're very comfortable with it.
Yeah.
It's worked.
I think you've got to be comfortable with uncertainty because stuff moves so quickly now, and I look back to who I was at 19, 20, 22, 25, and it's very, very different people. So why I think it's unrealistic these days to imagine yourself in a single role for a long period of time, given how much we develop as people, and you need to have the space.
That's a very progressive view. Now, just touch on sports for me, because you never left sports alone, did you?
No.
Now, look back. What have you done in sports?
So as I said, I started in gymnastics and then swimming and then sailing.
Yes.
And then when I stopped sailing, I was 15. I did a bit of coaching for a couple years, but nothing too intense. I burnt out, really. And then I took up ice hockey was my next sport. And I did that. Well, I'm still doing that about 4 years now or so. And now I play netball. I like to do sports to have the team to go to have the social interaction. And I hate running on my own. I hate cycling on my own. I have no problem cycling or running in a group. I go to sports for that team interaction, for the kind of the dynamic of it all.
And there's a bit of a social.
Yes.
So, what level did you get to in ice hockey?
So at the moment, I'm going off to Finland in the new year with the GB University squad to do a camp out there. We're playing China and one of the Finnish teams, I think.
So not bad.
All right, average.
Anything else? Where did you get to in netball?
Netball is just a fun league, so we meet every Thursday, and it's very,
Nice.
But it's quite nice because ironically, a whole load of people who I knew from school who have stayed in the area I now play netball with, so it's been quite nice for reconnecting.
So what does the future hold for you now, Steph?
It's a good question, isn't it?
Are you that sort of person that will say, I've had these varied experiences, therefore, here's my goal? Is that how you do it, or it's a bit more short term than that?
I think it's important to leave yourself the ability to react what happens around you. So I try to plan my life where 70% of it is relatively structured, relatively planned. I know what I'm doing. I've got a goal for that. But I leave 30% deliberately open so that when something comes along, I've got the space to explore it. And if I want to think, I've got space to think and time to think, because it's so easy to get stuck in the rails, really, and just you're chugging along and you're progressing, but actually if you just take one step to the side and have a look outwards, you realise that there's a completely different way you could go and it might fit you better.
Where do you go for guidance? Where do you go for counselling?
You. I guess I read a lot. I really enjoy reading. It's something I've always done. I listen to podcasts and things like that. I don't watch a lot of TV or anything like that, but I do actively seek knowledge, and I'm very much introverted as a person, but I've realised in the last kind of 3 or 4 years the value that other people have, and so I deliberately try and have conversations with interesting people, because you get thoughts or ideas that might not even be in the way they intended, but you take it and think about, oh, actually, what about this? And
say a little word about academia, because it's been very interesting. You took the GCSEs, took some time out, came back, did your A-levels, did some Open University, you then did a more structured mechanical engineering. Anything else?
Well, I'm doing an MBA at the moment because
You would be. Yes. Why?
Because I haven't left school since 1997. I kind of want to keep it going. It's the most consistent thing in my life so far.
It's important to you, isn't it?
There's things you can learn by being out and about, but I think it's also important to go back and look at the common knowledge, the things that people are basing their assumptions on, because there are a lot of people going around who maybe have only ever been in that area, or if they've been in the business, they've built their ideas off of something, and if you can understand the basic idea, then you get a better understanding of what the person's trying to achieve, instead of maybe getting distracted by how they tell it to you.
So, in terms of in 5 years' time, where are you going to be, or do you even think like that?
I got asked that in my job interview for the insurance one, and they went to me, oh, so where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And I said, I can't tell you that, because you've asked me that 5 years ago. It's not here. And the guy said to me, "Oh, in a job like mine," I kind of sat there thinking to myself, if I'm only in your job in 5 years' time, I've done something really wrong.
So there's a mix. There's definite ambition and aspiration, but it's not a structured career plan. It's not going in a particular direction.
No.
And I'm sitting close up to you, and I can feel you're confident. You're believe in yourself. You're courageous about what the future may bring, but you've got a very open mind to it.
Yeah, I think you've got to be open to. I think it's foolish to think that any one person's going to know everything that's right for anyone, including yourself. I mean, we live in our own internal world, but that's not necessarily how other people see you. And actually, someone might just give you something which you'd never have thought of yourself.
So look, it's been great talking to you, but there's the piece we haven't touched on. You bring a social conscience to everything you do at work.
Yeah.
What other extracurricular activities have you got involved in, or are you getting involved in, that enables you to feel as though all work can be a force for good?
I've been really fortunate, actually, where my managing partner had about this time last year, he went, "I'm getting old now. I want to do something that really gives back to the community. I want to get involved in this corporate social responsibility thing. I don't know what it is. I don't really care what it is, but I want to do something."
Mm-hmm.
And so it gave me, the open brief was, I want to do something good. And we got involved in an organisation which has helped us develop a CSR strategy and make sure that all the people in our company are feeling like they're actually contributing something, both in terms of directly what they do for their design. We very actively build sustainability into the design, but also outside of that, where people have opportunities to go out and meet young people and mentor and speak to them and feel like they've had an influence on other people. Because at the end of the day, people make the world. You can do as much as you like looking at a box playing your video games, but it's still a very different experience if someone is sat there with you. And so last year we had our first formal work experience student come in with us. We partnered with a charity, Generating Genius, who helped us out, and it was such a fantastic experience. But we kind of sat there and thought, right, okay, what can we do next? And we're a small company. We're only 10 people, so we haven't got a lot of resource in terms of money, time. But we wanted to actually reach outwards to the community and see what we can give them. So in 2019, we're doing some more outreach stuff into schools, actually going out and speaking to them and informing them about our world of construction, because most people don't even know most of the jobs that exist in professional services.
But it's great because you're proving that it doesn't take a lot of resource. It doesn't take a lot of... It takes the intent, the commitment of the people that are there. Mm. So in closing, Steph, I have to ask you, you're young for everything you've done, and you're a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Have those two things ever stood in your way, your age or your gender?
Gender, not so much. I mean, I worked on a construction site where they put me out the front because I was a pretty face. And I had one of the guys come up to me and say, "What is your job? Is it just to sit there and look pretty?" But I work with men, I work in construction, so you get over it. You just slide straight off you. So although I've probably had, comments and things, I've never felt like that stopped me. Age is a slightly different one. I've had to fight for pretty much everything I've done. When I was 16 and wanted to do a degree, I had to spend 3 months on the phone to the young people's advisors to convince them that I was capable. And then the year later, having got 85% in the exam, I then had to have the same conversation. So just look at my grades, it's fine. I had it when I moved into construction. I started doing networking and business development. I go to events and there's me at 23, 24, and then there's all the grey hairs who are stood there, who are directors, and you can see them. They look at you and they go, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, you're just the business development lady. You're not." And actually, that kind of perception by physically looking young it does. You feel it. It does get in the way a bit.
Steph Wicken, fabulous talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
That's the end of another Spike Chats. Fabulous talking to Steph. We look forward to hearing from you again soon. Thank you very much indeed. Last year, I released my book, Spike. What Are You Great At? In the world of Spike, there are no losers anymore. Everyone has something they are great at. Now you can get it as an Audible book from Amazon's Audible, read by me and the people contributing their stories whilst you're driving, at the gym or walking the dog. Download it now from Audible.